Hi, I'm Nick Buchanan from Shop 71, and I like to bake cookies. I feel like it's something that I'm very proficient at. Anyways, who does not like fresh chocolate chip cookies? I know I do. Hopefully, more people out there do. They're very delicious coming out of the oven. If you cook them right, they can still be soft, not super rock hard. Sometimes you'll run into that if you're trying to speed through or you don't let your butter do its thing or whatever. But, anyways, I've been making cookies since I was a kid with my dad, probably 5, 6 years old, till when he passed away. Then I was just doing it, and now I do with my son is something fun we can do together. He's 5 years old also. So, anyways, what I want to do is talk about the three different stages of baking cookies. You got to have the prep work, right? Make sure that you have all your supplies ready, your ingredients. Make sure your oven's preheated and and your butter's out, you're soft. Then you have the execution, mixing all your ingredients, your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients together, having those properly done. So then once you have it, you can, obviously put in the oven, which is the payoff, right, of you actually eating the cookie. And right here, I have some cookies that you can see that I did yesterday. They're pretty delicious. We tried a couple. I want to make sure we didn't eat them all, just so you guys can see them. Anyways, we'll talk about the prep work a little bit. So the prep work, you want to make sure you have all your ingredients pre-measured out in front of you. So those ingredients would be flour, sugar, baking soda, salt, right? Your eggs. What else? Did I miss anything? I think vanilla and chocolate chips. They're just the basics. But I always try to do that 20 minutes prior before I start baking. Take my time, listen to some music, and I have to make sure the oven's preheated, because if you try to cook the cookies when the oven's not preheated, the first batch ain't gonna come out right, which are gonna ruin about 10 to 12 cookies. You also want to make sure your butter's out prior, because you're taking it out of the fridge unless you have a cube of butter, right? Oh yeah, one more ingredient I forgot is oil, because I use for the fat. I try to use half cup of oil, of vegetable oil, and then a cube of butter. Anyways, so enough about that. Let's talk about the execution process. I like to start with the dry ingredients. I put my half or 2 3/4 cups of flour that I measured out. It's already in a bowl. Then I take my salt, which is a teaspoon of salt. I pour that in, and I put my teaspoon of baking soda, and I put that in the bowl, and I try to mix it up really well so it's all incorporated together. And then I work on my wet ingredients, which is my butter, the vegetable oil, half a cup of white sugar, half a cup of brown, or full cup of brown sugar, sorry, my 2 eggs, and the vanilla, which is like a teaspoon. And the vanilla, which I do is I usually just eyeball it a little bit, because I like vanilla, and it's not, it's never really too overpowering unless you put too much. So, but you just try it out. Anyways, I make sure I combine that really well. And what you want to do is make sure that the butter, the butter is really incorporated with the sugars, that you can't really see it and it meshes well. Because if it's clumpy and you have like cold butter in there, sometimes it'll leave little like cubes, like little tiny pieces. And when you try to cook it, it just doesn't taste right. So I try to make sure that's together. So then when you have your wet ingredients taken care of, I take the dry ingredients, again, it was the flour, the baking soda, and the salt, and I pour that into the wet ingredients. I probably do about a third cup at a time, until it's all gone. And I mix it with my electric mixer. I don't have a KitchenAid, but I just have one of those little tiny guys, and it works. It's faster than hand mixing it. But I make sure I scrape the bowl sides. After all that's in there and it's properly mixed, I take the beaters out. Try not to lick them, hopefully. Sometimes it's too hard. And then I take the chocolate chips and I pour those bad boys in and mix it a couple times so it's really good and consistent. So now we're at the stage I like the most, because trying to get it done over with, because you're kind of tired. You don't want to bake anymore, just... Anyways, is the payoff. So the payoff is very delicious. Everybody should like the payoff. I mean, let me show you one of these cookies real quick. I can see if you can see it. I'll snap it in half, and it's still gooey and delicious. And anyways, so what I do is take out my I can't even think of the word. I take out my pans, my baking pans, and I have like about 3 of them, because each one can fit about 12 cookies on it at a time when it's in the oven. Anyways, I take that, lay them out on my counter, and then I take 2 tablespoons and measure out about a tablespoon or 2 and scoop it into little balls, then put it in the oven. and let that cook for between 8 and 10 minutes. Now, the cooking time can vary depending on what oven you have. So I usually, the first one's called, I call it the test batch. I don't know if you guys do that too. And when you do the test batch, you can base it. And right when I start smelling the cookies, I check out the cookie to see if it's finished. And how I know it's finished is I look at the bottom and see if it's like browning around the edges just a little bit, and then I'll touch the top to see if it bounces back. If it does, I'll take them out, then go by that time. Yesterday was about 8 minutes and 30 seconds it took to make the cookies, but then I let them cool for like 2 minutes before I move them so I can transfer them. And then, of course, I bring my son in and he does the quality control check. So anyways, enough about me talk about making the cookies. Let's go over the process again of what we talked about. So you have the prep work, which you want to do for the cookies, right? So you want to make sure all your ingredients are together and your oven's preheated and you got your butter. Then you got your execution, making sure you mix your wet and dry ingredients separate, then adding them together. And then the payoff, right? So you want the cooking process and the eating process, which is very delicious. And then that's about it. So again, I'm Nick Buchanan from Shop 71, and I like to bake cookies. Thanks.